I was asking Kevin if he wanted to operate his PowerPoint better than we were able to, but he feels comfortable with. So we'll give him the first question. How can Olney Friends School students, staff, and board cultivate a spirit of innovation? How can Olney Friends School's students, staff, and board cultivate a spirit of innovation?
Short answer, I don't know. Begins with education, and to me that's what it all comes down to. Again, I'm high on Hardin's essay about the tragedy of the commons, that he finally sums up to that what's the only logical solution at the moment is to educate folks. So innovation comes out of knowing what you got, working with your, help me again, it's dynamic and static intelligence. There we go. We have two intelligences, right? The one is kind of learning our different knowledge spaces, just having core facts, and then the other side is the dynamic, using those facts to create something useful, or work with the static, work with the random facts and create actual something folks want to hear or be innovative with. Education is the simplest answer I can give.
Thank you. This is for Peter. How did Berea build its endowment in order to offer full tuition scholarship to all students? Secondly, how much of Berea's operating expenses are paid through student labor and programs, and how much through the endowment?
Okay, I think Berea was founded 150 years ago, and it was, I think, the founding vision. The integration of the races, the integration of men and women. In the late middle 1800s, those were radically disruptive ideas, disruptive technologies, putting those two groups together. The second question asks specifically about the sort of the financial system of the financial profile of the college. Let me see if I can do the work study piece. So we apply similarly to, I think, Sterling College and Warren Wilson for federal work study arrangements with the federal government. I do not know what percentage of the student labor is actually supported by those two grants, but that's the model. And as a part of that, you have to have certain requirements, including support by faculty and/or department heads, including the assessment, consistent training, and review. And I'm going to withhold specifically the percentage of dollars that are supported by the college on the endowments. I will say that we are experiencing similar challenges as you all. We were in 2008 impacted significantly by the stock market. It devaluated our endowments over $200 million, and that got us to think very differently about how we were going to invent our future. We quickly designed models that offered retirement packages to some faculty and staff. We collapsed and some of our functions inside the institution, and then currently the faculty are going through a very serious scenario building process where we're looking at governance, our structure, and our reporting relationships and new faculty configurations as a way to anticipate our future. And we think we're going to get through it, but these are very, very, very tough times.
Thank you. This comes from Megan. If we can't provide all our needs locally, how would we interact? How would we buy goods from people outside our area? Example being solar panels.
Great question. Obviously, this is a transition. The dollars that we have, we're going to have to still try to get some more dollars probably so we can buy things outside of our area. Right now, we cannot buy everything that we need from the area. Arthur Morgan was a visionary, a Quaker. He played a central role in Antioch College in developing their co-op program. Arthur Morgan started talking about community currencies in the Appalachian region when he was the president of the Tennessee Valley Authority. He envisioned a situation where you would have a local credit clearing association. This is not paper currency, this is just credit. That would start locally, but then you would have regional ones, because he understood that Yellow Springs couldn't get its coal from, a 50-mile radius. They had to expand. So he created what was the Midwest Regional Exchange, and they enabled that kind of larger trade. So I think it's about creating these interconnecting structures. It starts with locally, and I think we have to try to do as much as we can locally. And if it means that we can't import as much of, the stuff, then we might have to do that. But it's really about getting those necessities back locally. 100 years ago, we provided basically our necessities, and the things that we imported into our communities in this country, coffee and bananas maybe, they were treats, they were luxuries. Now we kind of create the luxuries and we import the needed things, so we kind of need to reverse that. Great question.
Thank you. This is for Howard. As a Knox County resident and a social worker in Knox County, I am curious how you plan to further this agenda for the economically disadvantaged in the county who will struggle to pay the higher price for organic food.
Thank you. We firmly believe that if you want to create a sustainable food system, it has to be sustainable and feed everybody and not just the middle class. Let me give one example of an initiative that we're trying to do. One of the key things that we think we need to do to expand food for thought generally is to create a facility which provides a commercial kitchen to create value-added products, cold storage so that farmers who want to sell locally have a place to store their food. We've been working with the Salvation Army and the Food for the Hungry campaign and others because they have the same storage problem that we do. That is to say, two problems. One, they don't have storage facilities for fresh food, and secondly, while they can get canned goods and they can get box goods, they can't get high-quality fresh food. So our idea is to create an arrangement whereby, say, a beef producer who can sell choice cuts at a profit to local restaurants and others, but who doesn't know what to do with all that ground beef, which if he or she doesn't sell can mean making the whole enterprise a losing proposition. So what if we made an arrangement where anything that the beef producer didn't sell at a profit to retail or wholesale could be sold at cost to the Salvation Army and the Food for the Hungry campaign? That would create an economic floor for those local producers, and it would also ensure safe, fresh, healthy food going to those who are most in need. And if you have it in a common facility, then it's simply a matter of computing and say, well, you know what's in that freezer there? It used to belong to Farmer Brown. Now it belongs to the Salvation Army. So that's one concrete project that we're trying to make happen to address that very significant problem.
Thank you. Matthew, China seems to be intent on developing a dominant position in solar panel production. How can we get a renewable energy, cradle-to-grave industry going in this part of the world to obviate dependence on transoceanic transport?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's true that we have boosted China's manufacturing capacity by moving our manufacturing there, and the same thing did happen in the solar industry. We've made a commitment as a business to not buy panels from overseas unless our customers specifically demand it. So we've been buying panels made in Tennessee. Unfortunately, it's by a Japanese company, Sharp. So it's a challenge, it really is. There are a few companies making panels in the US. There's one company making panels in Ohio, but they are not appropriate for most of our usage, and they have hazardous chemicals in them, cadmium and telluride, which we prefer to avoid since silicon is a perfectly good substance for making solar panels and is non-toxic. So it really goes to the decisions that the customer makes. Our customers are willing to pay a little bit more for that. And it goes to the decisions that are being made. And even here, this, you know, from my understanding, you know, there's a solar array that's going in here. I just was informed about it today, but I don't know enough to say where the panels are coming from. But I do know that the company that I guess is doing it buys most of their panels from Indonesia. So maybe you all should check into that. And the power purchase developer is also not an Ohio-based company, and there are Ohio-based companies available for that. So unfortunately, you know, it takes, you know, you give a power to people like architects, engineers, and they take that where they want, and it takes a lot of attention and commitment to follow that trail. And if you don't do that, you could end up with a solar array from Indonesia in your backyard. So check that out and follow that up, because that's the driving force, the customer, and you are the customer in this case.
Thank you. This for Peter. Please say more about a process Olney could adopt to surface good new ideas and try them out in the community. Can you walk us through an example so we can get a better sense of the process?
It's great. Thanks. That's a great question. I was hoping my comments would stimulate a question like this. So I teach a creative writing class, and the class was critical thinking, critical writing in NEAT tourism, nature-based eco-adventure tourism. And I designed that class because I attended a community-based Barnesville meeting where they were envisioning the example, Berea, as they were envisioning the future, and they were all talking about what would the future look like 20 years from now. And they were not unlike this conversation about the future. And I kept listening, and I'm new to the area, so I laid back. And finally I said, I think these visions are incredible. Unfortunately, I didn't hear one word about digital technology, so I think you're actually going to be a ghost town in 20 years. And out of that, a couple of people approached me, and they said, would you experiment, Peter, with a cell phone walking tour to stimulate arts, crafts, and tourism? Out of that came students in my class wrote 5 cell phone tours that were nature-based. And then we went into the Appalachian region and we created the cell phone tour nature-based plus cultural heritage. When we iterated that is, showed that to our tourism people and the people in the community, they said, that's fabulous. You're teaching us about a history that we don't even know about in our, based on our assets, but we'd like smartphones. Okay? And that came from the Appalachian region. So the students reiterated, prototyped, looked at some models, did cell phone tours, and we designed a cell phone tour that won Best Project to impact the Appalachian region. So you generate lots of ideas, you get them reviewed, and you bring your customer into the design process. You prototype, you get feedback, you prototype, you take it out, you have it judged, and ultimately resources will emerge because quality ideas rise to the top, and ultimately we ended up with a community partner that helped us with a licensing agreement to develop an iPhone application.
Thank you. This is for Kevin. One of yesterday's panels focused on the use of human-scale technologies. As a friend, as a Quaker, who uses and develops technologies such as climate change software, how do you bring your values to bear on your work?
One, what do you mean by human scale? Can whoever wrote this question, I'm not quite sure I follow. Or is that obvious that I don't know the answer? Does somebody know what human scale means? Okay, thank you. With that light. Repeat the question. Oh, sorry. Yes, that's very good. Human scale was, why don't you say it? You said it best.